And the first study we did was a study where we took old men to a retreat that we had retrofitted to 20 years earlier.
Right. What was this called again?
We called the Counterclockwise study. Right?
Yes.
So they were going to live for a week as if they were their younger selves.
And they were in their late 70s, 80s?
Even older.
80s,
But
90s?
now remember, that was quite a while ago.
Okay.
That was when 70 was the new 90 or even 100 or whatever.
Sure.
I mean,
Okay.
they were really old.
Yeah. Like walkers.
They get
canes.
younger as I get older. But,
right.
But as I recall.
So they're in walkers, they're in canes, they're immobile, they're very slow.
Well, actually, that when I was interviewing people to do the study, so their adult daughter would typically bring them to the lab, and I see them tottering down the hall. And at one point I said to myself, why am I doing this? I don't know if they're going to live through the day, no less be able to live for the week.
Okay.
And I took on something that only the younger of me would have considered taking on. I was in charge of their entire lives. These several, 7 men, old men, every aspect of their lives for a week. At any rate, you could, you looked at them and didn't matter what number you attached to them. They were old. Now they were going to live for a week as if they're their younger selves. So they'll be talking about current events, things from the past, as if they're just unfolding. And other things as well.
Like they would have newspapers from 30 years prior.
Exactly. And they were making their own meals, and they would correct each other. So if you would say was, somebody would tell you is, because the past was now the present for them.
Wow. And they were listening to older music and watching older movies and everything.
I could spend the whole time with you just so I know that study. So you want me to give more details, just tell me. But let me tell you the results.
Sure.
Those were amazing. So they lived as their younger selves for a week. Without any medical intervention, their vision improved, their hearing improved, their memory, their strength, and they looked noticeably younger. Yeah. And I must tell you that almost from the beginning, the changes were palpable. And most people accepted the findings. There were a couple of people who said, you can't make people younger. And I'm not saying that chronologically we're changing your age, but it is the case that we associate certain ways of being with certain times in our lives, and that these men were living their lives now very dependent on their adult daughter, presuming that they can't do many of the things that they used to do, and they were wrong. And so that set the stage for a host of studies, most of which, well, all of them actually to date, are in the mindful body.
That's fascinating. What would you say that study was a while ago, right?
Yeah. No, that was, let's see, we designed it in 1979.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time, before you were born.
Yeah. Wow. So what would you say in the last 44 years, I guess, what is the new?
Has the world changed?
Yeah, I mean, or what are the new studies or research that you've done to show how to either reverse aging or to, I guess, create longer aging in the biological sense?
Remember, it's all one, mind and body. So we don't have a psychological as opposed to a biological
So it's both.
sense.
It's the mind and the body.
But I thought you were asking me, so I'm going to answer the question I thought you were going to ask, not the one that you did, right? Which was, how has the world changed? Because that's a lot of years. And way back at the beginning, the medical model believed that psychology was more or less irrelevant. All right. Now, I'm sure everybody thought it was nice to be happy, but that wasn't going to affect your physical health. Now that's changed. And now what most people believe is a biosocial model. So these things like stress and so on matter, but they don't go nearly as far. And I'm saying down the road, psychology will be the most important aspect of your well-being. So that's a change that's come about slowly. Now, for me personally, once we had those data, I did several studies where we simply make elderly people. Every time I say the word elderly, I stop now being older myself. Right. But we make seniors more mindful, and they live longer. So it's important for you to know that mindfulness, as I study it, has nothing to do with meditation. Meditation is fine. It's just different. Okay. When you meditate, you take yourself out of the world and you say your mantra to yourself over and over. Mindfulness, as I study it, couldn't be more in the world. That what you're doing is not a practice, it's a way of being. You actively notice new things about the things you thought you knew. You come to see you didn't know them at all, and then your mind naturally goes to them. Now, if we start off with the realization that everything is changing, everything looks different from different perspectives. The idea of being certain of anything becomes silly because you can't know. It's not what it was the last time you looked. And if you could adopt just one mindset, it's the only one I believe that is good for you, that uncertainty is the rule, not the exception, then you don't know. So then you tune in. The problem is our parents, our schools, the media, virtually everything is trying to teach us absolutes. And when you think you know something, you don't pay any attention. So I'll do what I do probably too frequently now. Let me ask you a simple question. This is the one that everybody knows.
Oh, man.
How much is 1 + 1?
2.
Okay, and that's what everybody says.
I feel like this is a trick question.
Well, it is, though, because 1 + 1 isn't always 2. That if you are adding 1 watt of chewing gum plus 1 watt of chewing gum, 1 + 1 is 1. If you add 1 pile of laundry plus 1 pile of laundry, 1 + 1 is 1. You add 1 cloud plus 1 cloud, 1 + 1 is 1. In the real world, 1 + 1 probably doesn't equal 2, as or more often as it does. So now look at the difference. It's unlikely, but after we finish, somebody comes over to you and says, how much is 1 + 1? You're not going to mindlessly say 2. You're going to pay some attention to the context, and then you're going to answer more mindfully and say, it could be, and then you can say it could be 1, it could be 2.
Interesting. It's all context.
Yeah, exactly. Everything changes, and our minds tend to hold things still. We think we know. We want to know because we think that gives us control. But since things are changing, you don't want your mind to hold it still. Well, in fact, it's changing because then you're giving up control that you otherwise would have.
Wow. This is fascinating stuff.